Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast. My name is Glenn, and I'm here with Adam and Colin, and your Overwatch League news starts now.
One shot, one kill.
Welcome to the podcast, everybody. As always, I am Glenn, and I'm here with Adam.
Hey, I'm Adam.
And Colin.
Hey, I'm Colin.
All right, guys. We have, as we're getting ready to start our preseason, we did have a little bit of news come out earlier in the week about a new Paath to Pro for the Overwatch League, giving all of you future gamers and leaguers a chance to go pro. Before, it used to be just the contenders, and it was essentially just a tournament for you to get into one of these teams if you were one of the lucky ones from one of the original 7 to then the 12. And now they've created a whole, essentially what would be the equivalent of a minor league for you to be able to contend with contend in the Overwatch League. Adam, since you're so thirsty, why don't you quench us with some of that sweet, sweet knowledge?
Wonderful. So we have the Overwatch, the Open Division, which is going to be basically like your open tryouts. So if you are ranked high enough, you can get invited to this Open Division. You'll play other teams of similar rankings, and from that point, you can be invited to the Overwatch Contenders. It's going to work on a system of promotion and relegation. So kind of if you think of European soccer. So if you're an Overwatch Contender, let's say, for example, the bottom 4 teams from the Overwatch Contenders are going to get kicked out of the Contenders, and they're going to take those top 4 teams from the Open Division, which promises to always promote teams that are, hungry for victories, teams that are really excelling. And it's going to weed out teams that are kind of bottom feeders, teams that are, not really doing too great in the standings year after year.
That was some intense language you used there.
Well, yeah. Bottom feeders is a little intense. I think this is going to be a good thing because it's going to help keep teams in rotation. The article says that we're going to be receiving more information throughout December. I think this was just the initial announcement to get people hyped. But I'm sure we're going to start getting more information on how things are going to work a little bit. And if you haven't checked out the video, make sure to go to the Overwatch League website or check out the YouTube Overwatch League and check that video out. It's got a lot of great information. But going back to rotating teams out, I think this is going to create a lot more competition. I think this is going to just level up what these guys are trying to do, because before, prize money is prize money. But now if you're contending and you're competing not only for bragging rights, but you're competing for a spot inside of the league, that's going to affect a lot of people, not only mentally, but like just everything in general. This is going to be life-changing, I think.
Yeah, because, a lot of the pre-existing competitors that are already part of Overwatch League, they all came from different, what Blizzard is calling third-party leagues. Like, everyone came from something that was already pre-established. And now that they're recognizing and that they've even embraced several specific regional leagues, that's just going to open the door for a whole lot more. So this first season is really, I'm not going to call it a test run, but it's really just kind of like the ground floor for something that Blizzard is going to expand into something very large, especially with them adding 2 new regions, which I think is really exciting, South America and Australia.
Absolutely, and a lot of the community in Australia is very supportive of Blizzard. It's huge there. Like I'm sure I've mentioned this before, most of the YouTubers and Overwatch players that I follow on YouTube are all mostly Australian. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the community flourishes and thrives in Australia. And South America is something that I'm incredibly interested in. As a Hispanic American, my parents grew up in Venezuela, and I lived there for a while as well. So it's just interesting to see that type of gaming culture there when it's not typically what you would think off the bat. I'm sure, Adam, you would agree with me, right?
Yeah, that's why players like Nome on the Dallas Fuel. No, I'm sorry. Nome is on the San Francisco Shock.
You call yourself a fan.
I know. I really messed up on that one.
You really. No, I got nothing. I'm sorry. I got nothing.
12 shots, 1 kill. But players like that from Mexico, we have several players from Spain. Markets that we don't typically think of when we think of the Overwatch community,
or even just the gaming
community in general.
Absolutely, and even then, we can argue that Mexico is part of the North American division. Because it's not just the U.S., it's North America, it's Canada, the United States, and Mexico. And Spain is technically part of the European division as well. So I feel like even those players can gain some momentum or gain some sort of recognition because of the different divisions and different tournaments that they have within their specific regions. But now we are opening up a region and a tournament, essentially, that is specific to all of South America. This includes Brazil, this includes Colombia, this includes Argentina, this includes all of these different countries that are not typically known for being super game heavy. Now this may just be us wrong, but I mean, since we live in America, we live in Florida, we have a Hispanic culture here that we are part of. But even then, it's usually North America, Europe, and Asia. Yep. That is what gaming is big in. That is where
whenever you see a lot of big esports leagues, it's out of those three.
Yeah.
North America, South Korea, several European countries, and when you hear of anything pro coming out of, say, Brazil, I'm aware of a few CS:GO leagues, but it's primarily there's a big FIFA community down there, and they're really intense FIFA competitions that go on down there.
Well, it just comes with the passion of loving soccer in general.
Exactly. But you never really typically see, I guess, leagues of this caliber, what Blizzard is bringing, coming to these communities, and I think it's really awesome. But there also seems to be some communities that kind of have been left out, and I don't know if that's just a demographic thing, there's not that much interest here or whatever, but I'm pretty sure the entire continent of Africa is
which is something that we were talking before we started recording. We think they added South America and they added Australia, which I think are definite markets that we should have and should do, but it's interesting that we don't have an African. I mean, obviously we don't understand the political or the economic climate over there. We don't understand how,
or just how many people are playing,
how many people are actually really playing. But I'm sure most of South Africa and most of North Africa, Egypt and those countries over there that are closer to the European leagues would have some sort of interest or show some sort of interest in that way, to where they could be either included or at least generate some sort of, some sort of traction there to be included in that type of stuff, or even those players just to be included in general. I'm sure if we looked on YouTube, we could find maybe one or two, but it's interesting that an entire continent, essentially the same size of South America, isn't being included in such a thing. And again, we don't understand the situation that's over there by any stretch of the imagination, but it's interesting to see, for sure, because if you look at a world map of all of these divisions and tournaments and stuff like that, it is just a giant hole in the center of the earth. And
I think it's important to note also that kind of defending Blizzard to an extent, that this Overwatch Contenders is still in its infancy of what it could become.
Definitely.
So there's no saying that Africa, would not be included in a future installment of the Overwatch Contenders, but at this time,
Well, I thought it was interesting to see an incredibly large amount of pre-existing leagues and new spaces that are coming to the Overwatch League, and just kind of seeing that giant empty space there.
Yeah, I think that the Overwatch League in general will grow from this Overwatch Contenders if they're truly trying to be, and they already established themselves as the premier esports Overwatch League. They're going to have to pull talent from all over the world, so they're going to eventually have to open up to the continent of Africa as well, in order to really truly pull the greatest Overwatch players around the world.
Well, that's, I think, what the contender trials are going to be starting. And they're going to be trying to pull from different regions, different divisions. It's honestly, they announced this in their whole Paath to Pro video, but they're basically going to be pulling directly from the game now. Like, depending on... there's multiple factors, but obviously depending on where you rank initially in your competitive points, if you are active at all in the esports community, it sounds a lot like skill will get you there, but it's just going to be a lot of recognition, like putting your name out there.
Yeah.
If you're a streamer, if you're a personality, and you're also talented at Overwatch, you're going to get a lot further than if you're just talented at Overwatch, which I think is super interesting. So that's like, especially with them absorbing these other leagues, like kind of putting satellite feelers out there with different areas. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more kind of fresh-faced talent that we haven't naturally been getting exposed to. Because everyone that's in the league right now, I'll wager to say, is pretty well known. The only people that you don't really see out there are people that, like, you know, played really intensely but never super competitively, like DPS Stanky, people like that. But most of the people that are in the league are really well known.
Of course.
And now...
And mostly, and they play pro. They got into the community, into the world, and they just stream on the side. But that's not their main business. Like
Exactly.
DPS Stanky, like we have people that are just streamers and they play it for fun. And of course, I'm sure that if they were asked to go pro, they would do it. But these guys formed an esports team and just have been living the life and living in the community. And I guess it's a little bit harder to break into that community without an actual team. And now that we're doing the contenders, they'll start bringing in fresh talent and different abilities, different talents, which is why I think this is so interesting, because we have, what was it? I think we read 113 players that are right now in LA doing the Overwatch League conference right now, essentially getting the rundown with Nate Nanzer and our Lord and Savior Jeff Kaplan, and seeing essentially workshops and how this is going to work, and which is super interesting. It's going to give a chance for these guys to really be a family, albeit a very large family, like 101 Dalmatian style, but it's still really interesting, and this family is just going to keep growing the more athletes that we keep adding to this, which I genuinely think that we can make the argument that these guys are athletes. If we qualify people that are competing based on talent, not only physical but mental as well, these are athletes.
And no, just like I said, it's super intensive, but I'm really, really excited just to see the fresh faces that come out. And we're going to be watching closely in this first season, but maybe the people that get less publicity are the people that end up surprising us down like 2-3 seasons down the road.
Absolutely. And I'm sure, I mean, a lot of these guys are younger, correct? I mean,
the majority of them are
we don't have a specific age range right now, but it would be safe to say that all these guys are between the age of 17 and 30.
That'd be a safe range. Yeah.
So we have, and this is true in almost all community. I mean, we have 16-year-olds that could kick our butts all day long, and we're 3 grown middle-aged. Well, no, we're not middle-aged. We're like 20. We're 25.
Yeah, we're in our mid-20s.
Yeah.
Make one Karate Kid reference. I'm 50.
Listen, Mr. Miyagi, I'm just saying that there are people that have an inherent understanding of the technical mechanics of this game that are able to essentially use this talent, this understanding to perform in a way that is beyond a level that most people have. So it's interesting to see that whether it's an age or just a mentality that you have, the talent that you're able to bring this. Because Sinatra, I think, is 17? 17 years old and already a pro player?
Well, what it comes down to for universally amongst like esports players and esports stars, they usually, not always, but the majority of them burn bright for about 4 years.
Yeah.
Between these young ages. Like, you don't really see that many kind of older esports players. But the reason they burn bright and then just kind of walk away is because
It's taxing.
Your attention span and your hand-eye coordination and all your reflexes, work much better when you're kind of younger and in that age range, and also to always be on like that, to always focus and hone your coordination and reflexes and all that. Like you said, it's taxing. They're 4 years of constantly being hyper aware of everything at a competitive level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're gonna.
Which is something
burn
we've
hard.
talked about before. One of my favorite streamers and leaguers is Siegel, and he was, playing competitively on NRG for a long time, and he walked away. Like he said that he didn't want to be a part of it anymore. He wanted to focus on the streaming. He wanted to focus on just playing the game and enjoying the game and trying to get back to it, and has signed on to be part of this inaugural season and inaugural league and team and everything. And it I'm sure that's what it was. Like, it just gets taxing. You're just so sunk into it that you have no other time. You're doing scrims, you're doing team competitions, you're traveling, you're doing this, you're doing that. You don't have time for a whole lot else. And so 4 years is in my opinion, even being generous if you're able to stand by this. And not that, I mean, we're on the outside. We want this to be a thing. We want to be a part of it. And I would love to play with it, but you're right. Like, if we take an actual look at how taxing this can be mentally, physically, and just reactions and how things start to diminish over time, like, 4 years is being pretty generous. So it's going to be interesting to see the new talent that comes in and how these guys grow and learn that are already in the league, and how they're able to develop these abilities and keep current and be able to keep up with the fresh talent that's coming in.
Of course. And I mean, just looking at some of the numbers and studies here, it's the burnout rate is super high for esports stars. Like, I think there's a study here. It was released a little bit ago, but there's
Through Reddit?
What?
Did you find it on Reddit?
I'm sure at some point, yeah. But the burnout rate a lot is just because, not generalizing, but there's a lot of Adderall usage, and just kind of you really have to be
focused.
Yeah.
They're playing at a level that's just almost.
It's a different game.
Yeah, it's a whole other game. It's almost incomprehensible from when someone picks up, if your average Joe picks up the game on day one versus what people are doing in the game now. It's just
on a professional level.
It's just
completely different games.
Yeah,
completely different games,
and it's unbelievable.
Which is why this is all so exciting. This is a sport. This is legitimate. This is
like soccer, like football, basketball, any of your traditional sports. These are the most qualified, most skilled players playing a game at its highest level. And I think that is the thing that excites me the most, is truly seeing the best of the best compete.
Yeah, there's a article here from Kotaku talking about a prevalent streamer who played Quake 3 Arena and Painkiller named Fatality, who retired at 20. That's how early and how quick kind of your career can last. It's extremely taxing. And that's kind of why I'm a little bit excited about them opening the floodgates to a lot of different people.
Right.
Because even if we do get attached to certain stars, nothing really lasts.
right.
And so the more fresh faces and the more personalities we get in, the more the viewers win.
And I think that's going to be exciting for the league in general because, it's such a taxing and pressing, activity playing this esports, this Overwatch League at such a high level that year after year, I think we're going to see a lot of parity in the league. We're going to see teams that do really well the first season not do super great the second season.
Right.
So it really is anyone's league to win, which
Absolutely.
as a sports fan makes it super exciting to watch, knowing that there's on any given match day, any team can beat any team.
Any player could take it home. Anybody, absolutely. Anybody can contribute that, which is again what we're kind of getting back to. This Overwatch Contenders, this Overwatch Open Division is essentially going to be like our minor league, which as baseball fans, like, this is where you see the upcoming talent. This is where you see the rising stars. This is where you see, like, the rookie Brad Bird, the rookie Derek Jeter, the rookie, sports icons that really define what the league is, define what your whole sport is. So it's going to be really interesting to see these guys rise and follow that career as our league continues to evolve and continues to grow throughout the next couple of years. It's going to be really interesting.
Absolutely.
I think now that we're talking about the Overwatch League, we even have this minor league system, like you said, Glenn, really making this a true sports experience. I think it's great when you look at something like ESPN. And ESPN actually has a whole section dedicated to the Overwatch League on their website now.
Do they really?
Yes, where they're reporting, Overwatch League news. They actually did a.
So it's not just an esports division; like it's just
Overwatch. They have an esports calendar, but it's also split up into 4 different sections. It's League of Legends, Overwatch, CS:GO, and Dota 2. So they have those 4 big
ones.
Esports games, and they have those broken down into their own individual games. And they actually did something that I thought was really interesting. They looked at the branding of each of the teams. So that's like their team name, their logo, how they've been promoting themselves, their merchandise.
Which is something that we've talked about a little bit before, is just their social media presence and how they've been branding themselves within the league, just through Twitter in general, just how they're interacting with their community. So I'm interested to see, so what else do they have on the ESPN site? Like, what else is it?
So they actually, other than just the branding, they actually have reported stories. So they had the story, they have basically on their homepage, when you click on the Overwatch, it is a Season 1, everything you need to know. So if you didn't know anything about the Overwatch League, it's kind of, what is it? How many teams are there? They give the rosters for each of the teams. And they also have individual articles for each of the teams as well. So for like London Spitfire, they have a Cloud9 buys London.
Interesting.
So they have individual articles as well. So you can go in depth on ESPN, which we know, is the leading sports reporting and entertainment outlet, and they're reporting about this Overwatch League. And when we look at this branding, they actually have a list where they've ranked each of the team's brandings.
That's just to kind of take a step away here. It's really interesting how I guess when ESPN starts, treating it like it's its own thing, with like brandings and actually putting it out there, like you can really tell that esports, while it has been on the rise for a while, like when you have articles about like what teams branding is like compared to the other teams branding, like when you really put it into the mainstream, I think the more companies that fully support like Blizzard's league like this, we could be looking at something that goes particularly large.
And ESPN is just recently starting to do this, but we had TBS support the Overwatch World Cup, correct?
TBS has actually been supporting a lot of esports
in
large
general.
events,
and Disney XD also supports esports, which of course Disney owns ESPN. So I'm sure this is just filtering through the
channels.
The grapevine, absolutely.
Well, more it breaks through, though.
And TNT, I'm pretty sure TNT has also done esports broadcasting as well. So if we're getting these like mainstream channels, all these corporate companies starting to invest into the news cycle of this league, which is just, all it's going to do is create more sponsorships, all it's going to do is create more hype, it's going to create, it's going to build the community to a mainstream audience, because regardless of, esports has never been on the down low. It has hundreds of thousands of international fans, so it's not like this has been in the shadows or anything like that. It just has been so outside of the mainstream, because the mainstream is your NFL, your NHL, your MLB, like your NBA, and now this is starting to break through the mold a little bit, and I think this is going to generate, in this age of pop culture and nerdism, the esports is where this is going to start to thrive.
But I think at least in regards to like mainstream kind of latching on to Overwatch, what you said earlier is absolutely correct. Like League of Legends tournaments get not only sold out stadiums, but millions of people watching on Twitch.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that thing where you kind of think like, have they reached their maximum of people that are going to watch this through Twitch and through streaming? And it's with ESPN picking up stuff like this, they also can kind of pull in people that maybe don't pay attention to this kind of thing. Like maybe they've seen their friend play Overwatch and now they're just watching ESPN, or they're going through ESPN and they see a story about it and they're like, oh, this is done at the like professional level now.
Yeah.
And then you've got someone's attention.
I think having a professional league, a formal league where I can look at my fiance and say, these are the best Overwatch players in the world, and this is the professional league. She is much more likely to also get invested because there is one league. It's not like I'm following, 5 or 6 different international leagues.
And it's not just you having like a niche like side hobby.
Yes.
If this is legitimate, like this is on TV and people are actually paying attention to this, and like we have flagship teams and we have general athletic icons within this league that people are starting to recognize on a daily basis and have household names of. Like this, it legitimizes it for sure.
And I can say fully, like, as an outsider, not that I am, but like to an outsider, it's, if you want to watch competitive Overwatch before this whole thing was announced, it can be kind of daunting, like seeing how many sub leagues there were, and same with other things. It's like, oh, I know that Cloud9 is a good team, but these are like 6 different leagues that they perform in, and I don't know which one means more than other ones. And this kind of like, I guess, centralizes it while still opening up and accepting those other leagues and pulling from those.
Well, besides the like the actual Overwatch World Cup, if you just like typed in Overwatch matches on YouTube, like there were hundreds of videos of pro teams actually playing, which is totally fine. But like these are separate divisions, these are separate, contenders and stuff like that. And then the World Cup,
on like the narrative.
Exactly, yeah, and you couldn't. There were no real stakes involved, and this is not saying that any of these leagues or tournaments or divisions or anything are not important. They are absolutely important. They have brought us tons of entertainment. They have helped shape what the league has become, because they are essentially the foundation to what the league actually is now. But the league is working in a way that the organization is there. You know what I mean? Like this is not encompassing just one division, not just the Asian Pacific division. This is not just the European division. This is encompassing a global division where we are bringing international players in and having an organized unit with a cohesive narrative.
Yes,
Absolutely. And I think if we take a moment just to look at this ESPN article listing the branding, not only does it legitimize the league, but I just want to get your guys' opinions on this. So they took some time to to review the logos, all the slogans, the color schemes, all of that fun stuff. And I'm going to kind of list off what they have as their ranking, and you tell me if there's anything that surprises you or if you kind of rank them the same. So in first, they think that the Seoul Dynasty have the best branding, the best logo, color scheme. Followed up by the Houston Outlaws.
I definitely really like the Outlaws.
That light green really shines.
Well, even just the logo, like the double pistol that looks like
creating the Longhorn.
Yeah, I love that. That's so cool.
They have the LA Gladiators in third,
which I really like the lions, and because it symbolizes the Reinhardt skin. I really like that.
The Shanghai Dragons in fourth.
Nah.
The London Spitfire in fifth.
I like the Spitfire and the bomber being the tracer skin, the bomber jacket, which I think is cool, but
we have the Valiant after that.
It just reminds me of Loki's horns from the Avengers.
Dallas Fuel.
Just reminds me of propane and propane accessories.
Propane accessories. One that I don't necessarily agree with is the New York Excelsior.
I don't.
That's an X.
I like the name.
Yeah, I like the name, but the
Excelsior.
logo.
The logo I don't understand. Although Excelsior, what is that? New York Giants. The Giants that are. I'm trying to remember what football team it is. They're. If you look at or maybe it's just like the actual New York state logo or state something. It says Excelsior in it, so I appreciate that much, but I don't like the logo. It's just a bunch of
X's
lines. Yeah.
Then we have the Boston Uprising after that.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting. Like the
interesting.
shield, it's not bad.
The
I'm okay
Florida
with it.
Mayhem after that.
Love it.
Yep.
I love the bomb.
I think that they should be up a little higher. I know we have a little bias, but I really like that palm trees, the fuse
the,
on the bottom.
the palm trees, the fuse, the Junkrat, the integration. It's a clean, simple logo. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I get people's complaints about it. They complain that the yellow and red makes us look like McDonald's.
Oh,
but,
come on.
yeah. But I happen to like it. And then we have the San Francisco Shock.
No.
I don't mind it. I like this. I mean, San Francisco. I mean, because when you look at like San Jose in the MLS, Major League Soccer, the professional soccer league here in North America, they have the San Jose Quakes. So again, the Miami Hurricanes, the natural disaster kind of thing that we have going on, and they have the Richter scale going on. So that's kind of cool. But and then lastly, the Philadelphia Fusion.
I kind of like this whole like Atom thing they got going on
for
like, the fusion
Winston.
spot. Yeah, like
that's kind of cool.
That's okay.
If I could read a little bit about the logo, according to ESPN, they wrote yawn. Just like the name, it's not the worst, but it isn't anything special. Orange is the team's main color, and like I brought up in the first part, the Shock is also using orange, albeit a darker shade of it. I know that the team has connection with the Philadelphia Flyers and are the same colors, but the logo, they're complaining the font is almost as bad as Comic Sans.
That's hilarious. I mean, it could be worse. It could be Papyrus.
That's
Papyrus!
So again, but when we look at this article on ESPN, really legitimizing the league to the point that, reporters are taking the time to
look
break
at the marketing,
down the
branding,
marketing.
the community, the social
Exactly.
media. Yeah, that's really interesting. Which again plays back into the community. Like the community is what builds it. We can talk about NFL fans. We could talk about international soccer fans, like
Barcelona, Madrid,
European soccer fans, and
Liverpool.
South American soccer fans are unlike any other group of human beings on the face of the earth.
Yeah,
like
of
we
course.
could talk about the community that surrounds the sport all day long, and I think them doing this just legitimizes the community that already surrounds esports and Overwatch as a community in general, which is also incredible. We have said it before, and we will say it 100 times more. This community is amazing.
Absolutely, and I think that although unlike soccer, I doubt any Blizzard will allow us to take smoke bombs into the
Or Bubucelas.
or Venezuela's into the stadium, but I still think that that same kind of atmosphere, and I think that
And they still have their noisemakers. Like they have those what are
the
those?
clap, the
The
inflatable
clappers. Yeah,
clappers.
yeah.
But I think that adding those city names and those region names really gives
Absolutely.
you something to grab onto. So
Yeah.
living in Florida now, I really it's the Florida Mayhem, something that I
Yeah.
can grab onto.
I love
course.
that.
Not just a corporate name, although we have our sponsorships. The Dallas Fuel have Jack in the Box on their jerseys,
Which is like mind blowing in my opinion. Like,
Yes,
the
a
fact
major-
that we have corporate sponsorships now for individual teams, and Jack in the Box is very popular in Texas in
Yes.
general. So it's great to see like
And
that
they're-
corporation and like that statewide,
Yes.
company taking pride in its team that it's supporting. I mean,
Of course,
we
yeah.
don't have it's the Fuel that has that, right? Or
the Dallas Fuel, yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
so it's goes to show which one's better because the Outlaws have no chance against the Fuel. But we're not going to get into that right now.
Cobra Kai. But no, I mean, I'm just saying that even having those sponsors, that Dallas Fuel, the Jack in the Box, that's not a regional chain. That's a major
Yep.
fast food chain
National
that is
chain.
sponsoring this team. We're getting major corporate sponsors.
And I'm sure we're going to see a lot more coming in. I mean, Xbox has sponsors
the
soccer
Seattle
teams.
Sounders.
Yep. And we have, tons of other sponsors that support other teams as well. So I'm sure we're going to see a lot of that come in as the league continues to evolve. So while we're on the subject of different teams, let's talk about if we could hypothetically theorize a team anywhere in the world, any state, any country, anything, what would you guys, off the top of your head,
Colin, do you want to start off with that one?
Like that
I'm
hasn't-
wrestling too.
that doesn't already exist? I know you're a Houston Outlaws fan, but if you could choose any other major city or any other country, what would you?
And Australia's already been announced. right?
Australia's been announced, yes, but they don't have like a Sydney.
I wouldn't mind a Sydney team. Like, I love that we have our little trash boy as the official Overwatch like mascot of Florida Mayhem. But I think a Sydney team with a lot of like Junkrat imagery
Yeah.
and stuff like that would just be really cool, like really cool feeling.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
I would be interested in. There are two that I'm wrestling over, and this goes back to the conversation we were having earlier about African representation. Like, we could do. Oh man, I don't like the South African halt or something like that, you know, and it'd
That'd
be
be cool.
and it'd be Orissa based, since New Bonny is technically, I guess, designed after a modern African city.
Yeah.
Which I would expect would be South African. And I guess I would want to do a Mexican team. Although, again, biased to South America, I would love to see a South American team, but I think Mexico and Central America might be a little bit more tapped into what's going on. So maybe like a Sombra-based,
Like a
again,
Mexico City team.
yeah, like a Mexico City,
That'd be
yeah. Like the Mexico City Skulls, and it'd be Sombra-based.
Oh yeah, do it, but like have that branding, like
Yeah.
Ciudad de Mexico, like in their native
Yes, and
Spanish.
it'd be like
Okay,
a sugar skull
Muertos.
sombra skull. Yeah, the Muertos. Yeah,
Yes.
that'd be cool.
That would be really cool. So I'm also wrestling between two. The first one is Paris, and have it be like a Widowmaker, and then have like trying to incorporate the Eiffel Tower into it somehow, and have it be like purple and black.
I think that'd be cool.
Like the Eiffel Tower transitioning into a rifle or something.
Yes, I think that would be super cool. And also, granted, how many great players we're pulling from Canada to have a team out of Toronto.
That's, yeah,
I
That'd
think
be cool.
I think that's an entire nation that doesn't
or
have
Vancouver.
or Vancouver. Yeah, they're both huge gaming hubs.
Absolutely,
So-
and even just industry hubs, entertainment. I
Yep.
mean, they film tons of stuff up there in general.
So being able to have a Canadian team, which I mean I would assume it's coming sooner rather than later,
Yeah.
given how much talent.
I mean,
exists in
if
Canada.
Canada had a World Cup team, then I'm sure they're not far behind in an actual contenders team.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, I mean, here's hoping.
yeah, here's hoping. All right, so we've talked about the new Path to Pro. We've talked about how we've started to legitimize the league with corporate sponsors and major news outlets starting to cover this. And we've talked about teams that we kind of are keeping an eye out for the future. Hopefully this may actually be a thing. Is there anything else you guys want to touch on before we close out the episode?
I just want to touch on how excited I am for next week having the preseason matches start.
December 6th, Mayhem
And
versus Fusion.
Really getting to see these matches with you guys, watch them
Absolutely.
together, and be able to really, dig into all the excitement that's coming up here in the Overwatch League.
Yeah, next week is actually super exciting for a lot of things gaming related, because we have obviously the preseason starting. We have the Game Awards that'll be streamed, and then we also have the PlayStation X, where they're going to make a lot of hopefully cool announcements about
Yeah.
stuff like that. It's a big week right before Christmas.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and hopefully we'll have a lot more Overwatch League news, especially on this Path to Pro, come out in December. So we'll definitely keep you guys updated. The more we find out, the more you will as well. So thank you for tuning in. As always, please reach out to us on Twitter, on Reddit, on most social media. Adam, do you want to touch on our Twitter handle and all that as well?
Yes, on Twitter we are at OW League Now. In case you were curious, the OW stands for Overwatch.
And the now stands for now.
Oh, look, you said it that time.
I was waiting on you to steal my thunder.
Oh, well, you got on to me the past few episodes, so I wanted to let you do this one, buddy.
We're also on Reddit. You can find our handle there at Overwatch League Now. We are on iTunes now, so make sure you subscribe, you like, you comment. Tell us if we're doing a great job. Tell us if you think we are doing a terrible job. Also, feel free to tell us who you think are going to win, the Fuel or the Outlaws, so we can settle this debate.
As always, you can find us on all these social media at Overwatch League Now. It's Overwatch League Now. You can find us on Twitter, Reddit, SoundCloud, and iTunes. And hopefully, come New Year, we will be on YouTube as well. maybe not with vodcasts, but just different ways for you to listen to us on YouTube. So keep an eye out. Comment, please write in if you want anything, if you want us to talk about certain things, or if you want us to elaborate on certain things, or even just to tell us that we're doing a great job, because that nice little ego boost is always appreciated.
It always helps, yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, my name is Glenn.
I am Adam.
And I am Colin.
Stay on the payload.
Or do your own thing.
Don't do that. Stay on the payload. Please. Please.
One shot, one kill.
The cavalry's here! Nerf this!
Play of the game.
Heroes never die.
I've got you in my sights. Fool.
Get ready. 5,